had always believed that cleaning was an art form. While others saw his work as menial labor, he understood the deeper truth behind maintaining order in chaos. Every morning at 500 hours, he arrived at the Terran Research Facility, a massive complex that housed some of humanity's most sensitive scientific projects. The building stretched across 12 floors, each level dedicated to different aspects of xenobiology, terraforming technology, and interstellar communications. The facility buzzed with activity during the day, filled with scientists, military personnel, and government officials. But in the early morning hours, it belonged too. He moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, his cleaning cart rolling silently on well-maintained wheels. The cart contained more than standard cleaning supplies, had modified it over the years, adding organizational compartments, upgraded filtration systems, and even a small tablet for monitoring building systems. Dr. Sarah Williams, the head, often arrived early and had grown accustomed to seeing at work. She respected his dedication and attention to detail. Unlike other cleaning staff who rushed through their duties, treated each room as if it contained priceless artifacts. He understood that contamination in a research facility could destroy months of work. "Morning," Dr. Williams called out as she passed him in Corridor 7. "Did you notice anything unusual in Lab 4 yesterday? Some of our equipment readings were off." Paused in his work, considering her question carefully. "The humidity levels seemed elevated when I cleaned there Tuesday evening. I checked the environmental controls and found a small leak in the ventilation system. I filed a maintenance report." "You filed a maintenance report?" Dr. Williams looked surprised. "That's beyond your job description." "Maybe," replied with a slight smile, "but a clean facility includes proper environmental controls. I've learned to notice these things." This conversation reflected the unique relationship had built with the facility's staff. Over his 5 years working there, he had developed an understanding of the research being conducted. He read scientific journals in his spare time, particularly those dealing with xenobiology and alien contact protocols. His colleagues often dismissed this as an odd hobby for a janitor, but believed knowledge was valuable regardless of one's position. The Terran Research Facility had been constructed following humanity's first contact with an alien species 3 years earlier. They had arrived in massive ships, their technology far surpassing human capabilities. They possessed advanced energy weapons, faster-than-light travel, and biotechnology that seemed like magic to human scientists. The initial contact had been tense, with both species uncertain about the other's intentions. They were an imposing race. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, they possessed reptilian features with scaled skin that shifted color based on their emotional state. Their leader, Queen, commanded respect through both her physical presence and her species' technological superiority. She had established diplomatic relations with Earth's governments, but the relationship remained formal and somewhat cold. During the diplomatic meetings, Queen had made it clear that humans were considered a primitive species. While not hostile, they viewed humanity as children who needed guidance. They shared limited technology and established research partnerships, but always maintained their position of superiority. Many humans found this attitude condescending, but governments accepted it as the price for accessing alien technology. Had been present during one of the Queen's visits to the facility. While cleaning nearby corridors, he had observed her interactions with human scientists and officials. She carried herself with regal bearing, her scales shifting to deep purple when pleased and bright yellow when irritated. Her retinue of advisors and guards treated her with absolute deference, and she expected the same from humans. The Queen's departure 3 months ago had been sudden and unexpected. She had received some form of communication during a routine meeting and immediately announced that she was returning to her. Dr. Williams had mentioned to that the research partnerships were put on hold, and many projects were suspended indefinitely. Now, as worked his way through the facility's lower levels, he reflected on how quiet things had become. The excitement and energy that had filled the building during the alien presence had faded. Many staff members seemed demoralized, uncertain whether they would return or if humanity would be left to develop on its own. The lower levels of the facility contained storage areas and utility systems that most staff never visited. Took pride in maintaining these areas just as meticulously as the public spaces. He understood that a building's foundation was just as important as its visible surfaces. As he descended to sublevel 3, he noticed an unusual sound echoing through the corridors. The sound was rhythmic, almost musical, unlike anything produced by the facility's normal operations. Paused, listening carefully. His years of working in the building had taught him to recognize every normal sound: ventilation systems, elevator operations, computer fans, and scientific equipment. This was different. Following the sound, made his way deeper into sublevel 3. The corridors here were narrower, lined with pipes and conduits that carried utilities throughout the building. Emergency lighting cast long shadows, and the air carried a faint metallic taste from the recycling systems. As he moved closer to the source of the sound, realized it was coming from Storage Bay 7. Storage Bay 7 was used for obsolete equipment and archived materials. It was scheduled for cleaning only once per month and had been there just 2 weeks earlier. He approached the bay's entrance carefully, noting that the security scanner beside the door showed a green light, indicating it was unlocked. The sound grew louder as he reached the door. It was definitely musical, with complex harmonies that seemed to shift and evolve. Had never heard anything like it, but somehow it felt familiar, as if it touched something deep in human consciousness. He placed his hand on the door's handle, hesitating for a moment before pushing it open. Inside Storage Bay 7, found something that explanation. A section of the floor had become transparent, revealing a vast chamber beneath the facility that shouldn't have existed according to any building plans he had seen. The chamber was filled with soft, blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the musical sounds. Strange, geometric shapes floated in the light, rotating slowly and casting intricate shadows. But what truly captured his attention was the figure seated in the center of the chamber. It was humanoid, but clearly not human, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to absorb and reflect the blue light. The being was the source of the music, producing the sounds through some form of natural vocalization that resonated through both air and what appeared to be the structure of reality itself. Stood frozen, uncertain whether he should retreat and report what he had found or investigate further. His practical mind told him this was far beyond his authority or expertise. But his curiosity, the same drive that led him to study xenobiology and maintain detailed records of everything he observed, urged him forward. As he watched, the being in the chamber became aware of his presence. It turned toward him and found himself looking into eyes that held intelligence and sadness. The being's expression showed surprise, but not fear. It continued its musical vocalizations, but now they seemed directed at, as if it were trying to communicate. Realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. This being was clearly not, representing perhaps a third alien species. But how had it come to be beneath the research facility? And why had none of the sophisticated scanning equipment detected its presence? The being gestured toward, its movements graceful and deliberate. Though he couldn't understand its language, sensed it was trying to convey urgency. Something important was happening, and somehow his discovery of this chamber was not accidental. Taking a deep breath, stepped through the transparent floor. He found himself standing on solid ground within the chamber, though how this was possible violated everything he understood about physics. The blue light surrounded him, and he could feel the musical vibrations resonating through his body. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The being approached slowly, its expression showing both hope and apprehension. As it drew closer, realized the creature was weakening. Its movements were becoming less coordinated, and the musical sounds it produced were growing fainter. Without understanding how he knew, realized this being was dying. In that moment, made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fleeing or calling for help, he knelt beside the alien being and placed his hand on its shoulder. The contact sent waves of sensation through both of them, and somehow began to understand what was happening. The being was not just dying, it was failing to complete something of vital importance. Through their contact, sensed images and emotions that told a story of cosmic significance. This creature was part of an ancient network, a system that maintained balance across the galaxy. Its presence beneath the facility was not random, it was part of a much larger pattern. But the network was failing, and time was running out. The being had been calling for help, its musical vocalizations serving as both a distress signal and an attempt to maintain its connection to the network. Survival represented the first response it had received. As understanding flooded through their connection, realized that his role as a janitor, someone who maintained order and cleanliness, had somehow prepared him for this moment. The being needed someone who understood the importance of maintaining systems, of keeping things functioning properly even when others didn't notice or appreciate the work. Without fully understanding what he was doing, began to respond to the being's musical calls. He hummed along with the alien harmonies, his human voice adding a new element to the ancient songs. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The blue light in the chamber grew brighter, and the being's strength began to return. But their connection also brought disturbing visions of what was coming. Queen's sudden departure had not been coincidental. She had detected signs of the network's failure and was returning to Earth with the full might of the fleet. She believed humanity was responsible for the disruption and intended to eliminate what she saw as a threat to galactic stability. Realized that in less than 24 hours, Earth would face an alien invasion force unlike anything humanity could imagine. But he also understood that the solution lay not in military might or advanced technology, but in the simple act of maintaining the ancient network that kept the galaxy in balance. As the being's strength returned, it began to share knowledge with not through words or images, but through direct transfer of understanding. Learned about the network of guardian beings positioned throughout the galaxy, each one responsible for maintaining cosmic harmony in their region. Earth's guardian had been failing, and without intervention, the entire sector would collapse into chaos. The knowledge was overwhelming, but found himself able to absorb and understand it in ways that surprised him. His years of studying and observing had prepared his mind to accept concepts that would have driven others to madness. He began to see the connections between everything: the Guardian Network, the Empire, humanity's place in the cosmic order, and his own unexpected role in maintaining it all. As the chamber filled with renewed energy, felt a profound sense of purpose settling over him. He was no longer just a janitor cleaning a research facility. He had become something unprecedented, a human guardian, the first of his species to join the ancient network that maintained galactic stability. And Queen was coming to destroy the very thing that kept her empire safe. The transformation was immediate and profound. As the guardian being's knowledge flowed into him, his perception of reality shifted dramatically. He could now sense the vast network that connected guardian positions across the galaxy, feeling their harmonious vibrations like a cosmic symphony. Most guardians pulsed with steady, healthy rhythms, but several showed concerning irregularities, and at least 3 had gone completely silent. Understood now why the Empire had achieved such technological dominance. There sat near the intersection of 7 guardian nodes, benefiting from the stable space-time conditions that the network maintained. Queen's species had built their civilization on this stability without ever realizing its artificial nature. They believed their success came from their own superiority, never suspecting they owed everything to an ancient system maintained by beings they had never encountered. The Earth Guardian, as now knew its name, had been weakening for centuries. The rise of human industrial civilization had created electromagnetic interference that gradually disrupted the delicate quantum fields needed to maintain. The Guardian had tried to adapt, but human technology advanced too quickly. Nuclear weapons, satellite networks, and quantum computers all contributed to a growing cascade of disruption. But its greatest challenge had been isolation. Guardian beings maintained their health through connection to the network, sharing energy and information with their distant cousins. Earth's increasing technological noise had severed those connections one by one, leaving alone and slowly dying. Found himself becoming a living amplifier for signals. His human nervous system, evolved for pattern recognition and complex social networks, proved surprisingly compatible with Guardian communication protocols. Where direct signals were overwhelmed by human technological noise, could translate them into forms that penetrated the interference. Working together, they began re-establishing connections to other Guardians. Felt the network's relief as Earth's node came back online, but he also sensed growing concern from the other Guardians. Several reported increased military activity in their regions. Ships were moving toward Earth in numbers that suggested not exploration or trade, but conquest. Through the network, accessed information about technology and tactics. Their ships were powered by artificial gravity generators that created space-time distortions. Their weapons manipulated matter at the quantum level, capable of disintegrating anything from individual molecules to entire planets. Their defensive systems bent light and radiation around their hulls, making them nearly invisible to conventional detection. But also learned about the network's defensive capabilities. The Guardians didn't just maintain cosmic stability, they could manipulate it. Space-time could be folded to redirect attacks, gravity fields could be intensified to crush invading forces, and quantum uncertainty could be weaponized to make enemy technology malfunction. However, these defenses had never been tested against a force as large as the approaching fleet. As night fell over the research facility, faced an impossible decision. He could feel Queen's fleet approaching, still hours away but moving at impossible speeds through dimensions humans couldn't detect. Earth's governments had no idea what was coming, and even if he could convince them, humanity possessed no weapons capable of threatening technology. But wasn't thinking about weapons. His 5 years as a janitor had taught him that the most effective solutions often came from understanding systems rather than fighting them. They weren't evil. They genuinely believed they were protecting galactic stability by eliminating what they saw as a threat. If could show them the truth about the Guardian network, perhaps the invasion could be avoided entirely. The challenge was communication. Could reach Queen through the network, but Guardian communication methods were far beyond current understanding. They would interpret any such contact as an attack, potentially triggering the very conflict hoped to prevent. Working with began developing a new approach. Instead of trying to communicate directly with he would demonstrate the network's reality in ways they couldn't ignore. The Guardian network controlled fundamental forces throughout their empire. By making subtle adjustments to those forces, could create effects that would be impossible to explain through normal physics. The first demonstration involved the asteroid mining operation in the system, where ships extracted rare elements for their technology, and coordinated with the Guardian in that region to create a harmless but unmistakable display. They adjusted local gravity fields to make several large asteroids begin rotating in perfect synchronization, spelling out mathematical constants in their orbital patterns. The effect on the fleet was immediate. Ships throughout the system detected the impossible gravitational anomalies and reported them to Queen. Within minutes, the entire fleet had stopped its advance toward Earth and begun analyzing the data. But knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The Queen would eventually conclude that humans had somehow developed gravitational manipulation technology, which would only increase her perception of the threat Earth represented. He needed to escalate the demonstration while there was still time. The second display occurred in the Vega system, where scientists maintained their most advanced research stations. Coordinated with multiple Guardians to create a more complex effect. They manipulated quantum fields to make the space around the research stations shimmer with impossible colors, wavelengths of light that didn't exist in normal physics. More importantly, they used the display to transmit information directly into computer systems, not as an invasion or attack, but as a gift. The data included mathematical proofs about Guardian network operations, star charts showing the locations of all Guardian nodes, and historical records of how the network had prevented cosmic disasters throughout the galaxy's history. Queen received this information while standing on the bridge of her flagship, the Dominion's Edge. Her scales shifted through a rapid sequence of colors as she processed what she was seeing. Purple for confusion, yellow for irritation, then deep blue for profound shock as the implications became clear. The data was unquestionably authentic. It described phenomena that science had observed but never explained. The unusual stability of spacetime near there, the consistent behavior of gravity fields throughout their empire, the absence of the cosmic disasters that plagued other regions of the galaxy. Everything they had attributed to their own superiority was actually the result of an ancient network they had never detected. More disturbing was the revelation that several Guardian nodes had gone silent in recent years, and the corresponding regions were experiencing increasing instability. Star systems that had written off as naturally chaotic were actually suffering from the loss of their Guardian protections. Without the network, their entire empire would eventually collapse into cosmic anarchy. But the most shocking revelation was that Earth's node, which they had been approaching to destroy, was not only functional but actively communicating with the rest of the network. The primitive, humans had somehow established contact with Guardians that science couldn't even detect. Queen found herself facing a complete re-examination of everything she had believed about her species' place in the galaxy. They weren't the supreme race she had always assumed. They were beneficiaries of a system they had never understood, protected by beings they had never acknowledged. As the Queen struggled with these revelations, was preparing for the most dangerous part of his plan. He had got her attention and demonstrated the network's reality. But now, he needed to convince her that humans could be partners rather than threats in maintaining galactic stability. The risk was enormous. If Queen decided that humans were trying to manipulate her, she could order the immediate destruction of Earth. Her fleet possessed enough firepower to sterilize the planet's surface within minutes, but had observed the Queen during her previous visit to the facility, and he believed he understood her personality. She was proud and decisive, but also intelligent and pragmatic. If he could present the situation correctly, she might choose cooperation over conquest. Working through the network, sent a final transmission to the fleet. This message was different from the previous demonstrations. Instead of displays of power or technical data, it was a simple invitation. He provided the coordinates of the research facility and requested a meeting between Queen and the human who had become Earth's guardian. The message was signed with his name and his job title, Senior Maintenance Technician, Terran Research Facility. He could have used more impressive language, but he believed honesty would serve him better than pretension. Queen needed to understand that the Guardian Network's power didn't depend on political authority or military rank. It was maintained by beings who understood the importance of keeping systems functioning properly, regardless of their official status. The response came within hours. Queen would come to Earth, not with her full fleet, but with a single ship carrying only her essential advisors and guards. She wanted to meet this human who claimed to speak for the Guardian Network, to understand how such a thing was possible. As received confirmation of the Queen's decision, he felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. He had successfully prevented an immediate invasion, but now he faced an even greater challenge. When Queen arrived, he would need to convince her that humanity deserved a place in the galactic community, not as subjects or threats, but as equal partners in maintaining the cosmic order. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent 5 years cleaning a research facility where scientists and officials worked to understand alien technology and establish diplomatic relations. Now, a janitor would be conducting the most important diplomatic meeting in human history, representing not just his own species, but an ancient network that maintained the stability of the galaxy itself. Spent the remaining hours before Queen's arrival making preparations. He coordinated with to ensure the Guardian Chamber would be accessible and properly configured for the meeting. He also sent messages to Dr. Williams and other key facility staff, requesting their presence without explaining the full situation. They would need witnesses to document what was about to happen, even if they couldn't initially understand its significance. As dawn broke over the research facility, felt the dimensional disturbance that announced Queen's arrival. Her ship materialized above the building, its hull reflecting the morning sunlight in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. The vessel was smaller than her previous transport, but could sense the incredible power contained within its elegant form. Queen descended from her ship accompanied by 4 guards and 2 advisors. She moved with the same regal bearing remembered from her previous visit, but her scales showed colors he hadn't seen before, deep indigo streaked with silver, indicating a combination of determination and uncertainty. As she entered the facility, stepped forward to meet her. He wore his standard maintenance uniform, his cleaning cart nearby as a reminder of his actual job. The contrast between his humble appearance and the cosmic significance of their meeting seemed almost absurd, but had learned that the universe often worked in unexpected ways. Queen said, offering a respectful bow, "Thank you for accepting my invitation. I believe we have much to discuss about the future of galactic stability and the role both our species can play in maintaining it." The Queen studied him with eyes that seemed to see through to his very soul. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience, but also a note of genuine curiosity. "You are the human who claims to speak for the Guardians," she asked. "You appear to be nothing more than a maintenance worker." "I am exactly what I appear to be," replied calmly. "But I have learned that maintaining order requires understanding systems that others often overlook. The Guardian Network is one such system, and I believe you are beginning to understand its importance to your empire's survival." Queen's scales shifted to bright yellow, indicating irritation at what she perceived as presumption from a lower being. But before she could respond, the building itself seemed to react to her presence. Lights throughout the facility began pulsing in rhythm with the Guardian Network's communications, and a low harmonic tone resonated through the structure. Smiled at her surprised expression. The Guardians are welcoming you, your Majesty. They have been waiting a long time for the Empire to acknowledge their existence. Perhaps it's time we discussed how our species can work together to ensure the network's continued operation. Queen's scales rippled through a complex pattern of colors as the harmonic resonance filled the research facility. Her guards moved into protective positions, their own scales shifting to warning patterns of red and black. But the Queen herself stood perfectly still, her advanced senses analyzing the phenomenon with scientific precision. "This is impossible," she said, her voice carrying a note of awe that her advisors had rarely heard. "Our sensors detect no technological source for these harmonics. They appear to be emanating from the structure of space-time itself." Nodded respectfully. "Your technology is impressive, Your Majesty, but it was designed to detect and manipulate known forms of energy. The Guardian Network operates on principles your science hasn't discovered yet. Would you like me to show you?" Before Queen could respond, Dr. Williams appeared in the corridor, drawn by the unusual sounds and lights. Her eyes widened as she saw the assembled group, speaking casually with the alien Queen who had departed Earth months ago under mysterious circumstances. Dr. Williams approached cautiously. "What's happening here? And Your Majesty, we weren't informed of your return." Queen turned to study the human scientist, her scales shifting to deep purple as she recognized someone she had worked with previously. "Dr. Williams, your presence is convenient. Perhaps you can explain how your maintenance worker has achieved something my empire's greatest scientists have never accomplished." Dr. Williams looked confused, glancing between and the Queen. "I'm afraid I don't understand. Is our senior maintenance technician. He's very dedicated to his work, but you never realized what his work actually involved," interrupted gently. "Dr. Williams, you've spent 3 years studying technology, trying to understand how their ships achieve faster-than-light travel and how their weapons manipulate matter at the quantum level. The answer isn't in their technology. It's in the network that makes their technology possible." Gestured toward the pulsing lights around them. "Everything the Empire has accomplished depends on the stability provided by guardian beings positioned throughout the galaxy. They've built their civilization on a foundation they never knew existed." Queen's scales shifted to bright yellow, indicating rising irritation. "You speak of my empire as if you understand its workings better than I do. This is presumptuous beyond." Her words were cut off as the building's lights suddenly changed pattern, shifting from the gentle pulsing rhythm to rapid, urgent flashes. The harmonic tone became higher and more intense, and felt alarm signals flooding through the Guardian network. "Something's wrong," said, his expression growing serious. "Multiple Guardian nodes are reporting disturbances. Your fleet's movement toward Earth has destabilized several critical connection points." Working through his link with, projected a three-dimensional hologram into the air between them. The display showed the local section of the galaxy, with golden points of light marking each Guardian position. Several points were flashing red, and could see the pattern of disruption spreading outward from the fleet's trajectory. Queen stared at the hologram, her scales now cycling through rapid color changes as she processed what she was seeing. "This is impossible. Our ships use established hyperspace corridors. We would have detected any interference with local space-time." "Your hyperspace corridors exist because the Guardians maintain them," explained. "The stable pathways your ships use for faster-than-light travel are artificial constructs, created and maintained by the network. When you move a fleet of this size through multiple corridors simultaneously, it creates resonance effects that the Guardians must compensate for." Dr. Williams was staring at the hologram with scientific fascination, despite her confusion about the larger situation. "This display technology is decades beyond anything we have. How are you?" "I'm connected to the Guardian network," said simply. "It happened yesterday when I discovered in Sublevel 3. The network has been trying to make contact with humans for years, but our technology creates too much interference. I was in the right place at the right time, and more importantly, I understood the importance of maintaining systems that others take for granted." Turned to Queen, his expression serious. "Your Majesty, your fleet's approach has already caused damage to 3 Guardian nodes. If you continue advancing with this many ships, the cascade failure could destroy the entire regional network. Your empire would lose faster-than-light travel, your weapons would become unreliable, and the space around you would become unstable." Queen studied the hologram intently, her advanced understanding of physics allowing her to recognize the mathematical relationships was displaying. The pattern was undeniably real and far too complex to be a human deception. "Assuming this is true," she said carefully, "what do you propose? My fleet cannot simply disappear. If I order them to withdraw without explanation, it will be seen as weakness, and I still do not understand how humans became involved in this network." Smiled, recognizing an opening for negotiation. "Humans became involved because we were already here. Earth has had a guardian for millions of years, long before either of our species achieved. The difference is that we developed technology that interfered with guardian operations, while your species developed on a world where guardian influence was so stable you never realized it existed." He gestured to the hologram, which shifted to show historical data about guardian operations around both Earth and the... "Your empire succeeded because you had perfect conditions. Our species succeeded despite having terrible conditions. That suggests we might be naturally suited to working with guardians under difficult circumstances." Dr. Williams was frantically taking notes, trying to understand the implications of what she was hearing. "Are you saying that all of technology depends on these guardian beings, and that humans can communicate with them?" "Not just communicate," replied. "Humans seem to be naturally compatible with guardian neural patterns. Our brains evolved for complex pattern recognition and social networking, which are exactly the skills needed to interface with the guardian system." Queen's scales shifted to deep blue, indicating profound thought. "You are suggesting that humans could serve as guardians." "I'm suggesting that humans could serve as translators and partners," corrected. "The guardians are ancient beings with perspectives very different from either of our species, but they need active partners to help them adapt to changing galactic conditions. Your empire's expansion has created new challenges for the network. Human interference has created others. Working together, we might be able to solve both problems." The Queen walked closer to the hologram, studying the patterns of guardian connections throughout the galaxy. What would such cooperation involve? Had been hopping for this question. "Your empire has resources and technology that could help maintain guardian nodes in difficult regions. Humans have the neural compatibility to serve as interpreters and active partners with the guardians themselves. Together, we could expand the network and improve its stability." "And what would humans gain from this arrangement?" "Access to technologies that work in harmony with the guardian network rather than fighting against it," replied. "Your current technology is impressive, but it's also somewhat crude because it doesn't account for guardian influence. Properly designed technology could be far more efficient and powerful." Dr. Williams looked up from her notes, excitement evident in her voice. "Are you describing a three-way partnership? Humans and these guardian beings working together?" "That's exactly what I'm describing," confirmed. "But it requires trust from all parties. Queen needs to accept that humans can be valuable partners rather than threats. Humans need to accept that we're not the dominant species in the galaxy, and the Guardians need to accept that their ancient isolation must end if the network is going to survive the challenges of the next millennium." Queen was silent for several minutes, her scales cycling through complex patterns as she considered the implications. Finally, she spoke. "This proposal has merit, but it also has risks. How do I know that humans won't use Guardian partnership to threaten my empire?" Smiled. "Your Majesty, I'm a janitor. I've spent 5 years cleaning this facility, maintaining systems that keep everything running smoothly. If humans were planning to threaten anyone, would we really choose a maintenance worker as our ambassador to the Guardian network?" The Queen's scales shifted to a color hadn't seen before, deep green streaked with gold. He wasn't sure what emotion it represented, but her advisors seemed surprised by it. "You present an interesting argument," she said. "But words are easy. How do I know this partnership would function in practice?" "Let me show you," replied. He closed his eyes and reached out through the Guardian network, coordinating with and several other Guardians in the local region. The hologram expanded to show the entire approaching fleet, then began displaying detailed information about each ship. "Your flagship, the Dominion's Edge, is experiencing minor fluctuations in its primary gravity generator," said without opening his eyes. "The oscillations are within acceptable parameters, but they're creating harmonic stress in the ship's hull. If left uncorrected, you'll need to replace the generator housing within 6 months." Queen's eyes widened. The information was accurate. Her engineers had mentioned the fluctuations in their latest report, but they had concluded the issue was too minor to require immediate attention. Continued, your escort ship Stellar Talon has a small crack in its quantum field projector. It's not affecting performance yet, but it will fail catastrophically within 2 weeks if not repaired. And the supply vessel Resource Keeper has a contamination problem in its food synthesis systems that your crew hasn't detected yet. Each piece of information was completely accurate, details that should have been impossible for any human to know. Queen realized that wasn't just connected to the Guardian network. He was using it to monitor her fleet in real time. How, she asked simply. The Guardian network monitors spacetime throughout the galaxy, explained. Ships with gravity-based technology create detectable distortions. The network can analyze those distortions to determine the condition of the equipment creating them. It's like taking the pulse of every technological device in space. Dr. Williams was staring at with a mixture of awe and confusion. This is incredible. You're describing monitoring capabilities beyond anything we've imagined. But how did you learn to use these abilities so quickly? I didn't learn them, replied. I already had them. Humans have been unconsciously connected to the Guardian network for thousands of years. It's why we developed such complex social structures and pattern recognition abilities. We just never realized the connection existed. Queen was studying the hologram data about her fleet, comparing it with her own ship's sensor readings. Everything had told her was proving accurate. More importantly, she was beginning to understand the implications of the network's monitoring capabilities. If the Guardians can monitor all technology in space, she said slowly, then they have been observing my empire's activities for thousands of years. Yes, confirmed. They know about your military expansion, your territorial conflicts, your technological development. They've been working to maintain stability in your regions despite the increasing challenges your growth has created. But they've never had a way to communicate with you directly. Until now, the Queen said, looking at with new respect, you are proposing to serve as that communication link. Not just me, said. Humans in general seem to have the necessary neural compatibility. We could train others to interface with different Guardian nodes throughout the galaxy. Your empire could have direct communication with the network for the first time. Queen's scales shifted to deep purple, indicating she was seriously considering the proposal. But before she could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the research facility. The hologram displaying the Guardian network suddenly showed massive distortions spreading outward from several points. What's happening? Dr. Williams asked, her voice filled with concern. Was already connecting to the network, his expression growing alarmed as he processed the information flooding through the Guardian connections. 3 Guardian nodes have just gone offline simultaneously. The cascade failure I warned about has begun. Queen's scales shifted to bright red, indicating alarm. My fleet. Your fleet's gravitational wake triggered resonance instabilities in weakened nodes, confirmed. The failure is spreading faster than the Guardians can compensate for. If we can't stop it, the entire regional network will collapse within hours. The Queen was already activating her communication device, preparing to contact her fleet commanders, but held up a hand. Ordering your ships to retreat won't stop this, he said. The damage is already done. We need to stabilize the failing nodes directly, and that requires coordinated action from the Guardian network. What kind of coordinated action? Queen demanded. Looked at her seriously. The kind that requires trust between species that have never worked together before. Are you ready to make history, Your Majesty? Queen's scales shifted through rapid patterns of red and gold as she processed the magnitude of the crisis unfolding before them. The holographic display showed the cascade failure spreading like wildfire through the Guardian network, each failing node creating instabilities that overwhelmed neighboring Guardians. What do you need? She asked, her voice carrying the decisive authority of a leader who understood when protocol must give way to necessity. Was already deep in communion with and the other Guardians, his consciousness expanding across vast distances to coordinate a response that had never been attempted before. I need your ship's quantum field generators and gravity manipulators. The Guardians can provide the knowledge and power, but they need technological amplification to reach the failing nodes in time. That requires direct interface between Guardian technology and systems, Queen replied. Such a connection could damage or destroy my ship. Or it could create something entirely new, said, his eyes still closed as he worked through the Guardian network. Your Majesty, the Guardians have been studying technology for. They know how to interface safely with your systems. But this has to happen now. We have perhaps 20 minutes before the cascade becomes irreversible. Dr. Williams was frantically coordinating with other facility staff, trying to document what was happening while preparing for whatever unprecedented events might follow. I'm reading massive energy fluctuations throughout the building. Whatever you're doing is affecting every system we have. The Guardians are preparing to channel power through Earth's node, explained, even as part of his consciousness worked with to establish connections with failing Guardians across multiple star systems. Dr. Williams, I need you to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the facility. What we're about to attempt could have unpredictable effects. Queen was already communicating with her ship, speaking in the rapid harmonics of her native language. Her advisors looked uncertain, but they followed her commands without question. Within moments, the Dominion's edge had descended to hover directly above the research facility, its hull beginning to glow with activation patterns. My engineers report that they're detecting connection requests from an unknown source, the Queen reported. The requests are using communication protocols they've never seen before. That's the Guardians asking permission to interface with your systems, said. Accept the connection but establish it gradually. This is new for them too. As Queen relayed these instructions, felt the moment when technology first made direct contact with the Guardian network. The sensation was like watching two different forms of music suddenly find harmony. The precise, engineered rhythms of advanced technology blending with the organic, flowing patterns of Guardian consciousness. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Dominion's edge began to pulse with patterns of light that seemed to flow like living things across its hull. Energy readings from the ship spiked to levels that should have been impossible, but somehow remained stable and controlled. Through the Guardian network, felt the power flowing outward from Earth toward the failing nodes. But it wasn't just energy. It was structured information, healing patterns that the Guardians used to repair damaged space-time. The ship was serving as a massive amplifier, giving the Guardians the strength to reach across interstellar distances in real time. It's working, Dr. Williams reported, studying her instruments with amazement. I'm reading stabilization in the quantum field fluctuations. Whatever you're doing is actually fixing the problem. But could sense that the effort was taking a terrible toll on both the Guardians and the ship. The Dominion's edge was being pushed far beyond its design specifications, and several Guardian beings were approaching the limits of their endurance. We need more power, said, his voice strained from the effort of coordinating multiple consciousness across vast distances. And we need it from multiple sources to distribute the load. Queen understood immediately. You want my entire fleet to participate. Yes, but that means trusting your ship captains with information they've never been cleared to receive, replied. They'll need to understand what they're connecting to and why. Queen's scales shifted to deep blue as she made what was perhaps the most momentous decision in history. Fleet Command, she spoke into her communicator. This is a direct order from your Queen. All ships are to accept unknown connection requests and allow foreign control of their quantum field generators. Full compliance is mandatory. The response from her fleet was immediate, a chorus of confused acknowledgments from captains who had never received such an unusual order. But military discipline was absolute, and within minutes, every ship in the fleet was establishing Guardian connections. The effect was transformative. Felt the Guardian network surge with power as dozens of vessels became amplification nodes. The failing Guardians throughout the galaxy suddenly had the resources they needed not just to survive, but to strengthen their connections to unprecedented levels. Through the network, sensed other alien species detecting the sudden stabilization of space-time in their regions. Civilizations that had been struggling with increasingly chaotic cosmic conditions found their problems mysteriously resolving. Trade routes that had become unreliable due to gravitational anomalies suddenly became stable again. But perhaps most importantly, felt the network itself changing. The ancient Guardians, isolated were experiencing something they had never known before, active partnership with younger species. The connection with technology was teaching them new ways to manipulate space-time, while human neural patterns were showing them new forms of consciousness and communication. Dr. Williams was recording everything, her scientific instruments capturing data that would revolutionize human understanding of physics. The energy patterns you're generating are impossible according to our current theories. You're manipulating forces we don't even have names for. We're not generating them, corrected, even as he coordinated the healing of guardian nodes across half the galaxy. We're learning to work with forces that have always existed. The universe is far more connected than any of our species realized. As the crisis stabilized, began to sense something else through the network, curiosity. Other guardian beings from distant regions were extending tentative connections toward Earth, drawn by the unprecedented cooperation they were witnessing. For the first time in their ancient existence, they were seeing biological species working together with their network instead of simply benefiting from it unknowingly. Queen watched her fleet status reports with amazement. Every ship was operating at efficiency levels beyond anything her engineers had thought possible. The Guardian connections weren't just using technology, they were improving it, optimizing systems in ways that revealed new possibilities for advancement. "This changes everything," she said, her scales shifting to the deep green-gold pattern that was beginning to recognize as her expression of profound revelation. "My empire's entire technological foundation needs to be reconsidered." "Not reconsidered," replied as he began to ease back from the intense network coordination. "Expanded. Your technology works because it's compatible with Guardian principles, even though it was developed without conscious knowledge of the network. Now that you understand the connection, you can design technology that works with Guardians instead of despite them." Dr. Williams looked up from her instruments, her eyes wide with excitement. "I'm detecting new communication signals from multiple star systems. It's as if the entire galaxy has suddenly come alive." "In a sense, it has," confirmed. "The Guardian network has been essentially dormant for thousands of years, maintaining basic functions but not growing or evolving. What we've done today has awakened it. Other species throughout the galaxy are going to start detecting Guardian activity in their regions." Queen's advisors looked deeply concerned by this news. One of them, a elderly with scales marked by the scarring patterns of high military rank, approached the Queen. "Your Majesty," he said in rapid harmonics, "if other species gain access to Guardian capabilities, it could threaten our empire's dominance." But Queen's response surprised everyone present. "General," she said, her scales shifting to authoritative purple, "our empire's dominance was always an illusion. We succeeded because we unknowingly received Guardian assistance. True strength comes from understanding and working with reality, not from deceiving ourselves about our place in it." She turned to, her expression serious but respectful. "What you have shown us today is that cooperation creates possibilities that domination never could. My fleet is operating at levels that should be impossible. Your facility is channeling power across interstellar distances, and the Guardian network is stronger than it has been in." Smiled, feeling the exhaustion that came from hours of intense mental effort, but also a profound satisfaction. "Your Majesty, this is just the beginning. What we've proven today is that humans can work together with the Guardian network. But there are thousands of other species in the galaxy who could benefit from this partnership." Dr. Williams was already making lists of research priorities and diplomatic possibilities. "If we can document these capabilities and establish formal protocols for Guardian interaction, we could create the first truly galactic civilization. A civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest," Queen added, her scales now showing the bright silver patterns that indicated hope and determination. "My empire has the resources and technology to support such an endeavor, and it appears that humans have the neural compatibility to serve as interpreters and coordinators." Felt a sense of completion as he surveyed the scene around him. The research facility was filled with impossible energies, but they were stable and controlled. The Queen stood beside him as an ally rather than a conqueror, and through the Guardian network, he could sense the beginning of changes that would reshape the galaxy. "There's something else," said, accessing information the Guardians were sharing about other species and civilizations. "The network shows signs of at least 12 other species that have the potential for Guardian compatibility. Some are more advanced than humans, others less so, but all of them could contribute something valuable to a galactic partnership." Queen's scales shifted to deep purple as she considered the implications. You're describing the formation of a galactic confederation built around Guardian partnership. Such an alliance would be more powerful than any empire based on military conquest. More importantly, replied, it would be stable. Empires rise and fall, but the Guardian network has maintained galactic stability for millions of years. A civilization built in partnership with that network could last indefinitely. As the immediate crisis faded and systems began returning to normal operation, reflected on the incredible events of the past few days. He had started as a janitor whose greatest responsibility was maintaining the cleanliness of a research facility. Now he found himself serving as Earth's first Guardian Network liaison and a key architect of galactic civilization. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that his background had been perfect preparation for this role. Maintaining complex systems, understanding how individual components work together to create larger functions, recognizing problems before they became crises. These skills served him just as well in cosmic diplomacy as they had in facility management. Dr. Williams approached him with a mixture of scientific excitement and personal curiosity. What happens now? Do you remain connected to the Guardian network permanently? The connection can be activated when needed, replied. But I'm still human, and I still have my regular job. The Guardians don't want to control anyone. They want partners who can help them adapt to changing galactic conditions while maintaining their own perspectives and personalities. Queen overheard this conversation and approached with a proposal. Perhaps your regular job should be expanded. My empire could benefit from human advisors who understand both Guardian principles and practical systems maintenance. Would you consider serving as an ambassador between our species? Smiled, thinking of all the possibilities such a position would create. I'd be honored, Your Majesty, but I have one condition. What condition? I keep my janitorial duties at this facility, replied. Someone needs to maintain the Earth Guardian node, and I've learned that sometimes the most important work happens in places others consider unimportant. Queen's scales shifted to the green-gold pattern of profound amusement. You wish to remain a janitor while serving as a galactic diplomat. I wish to remember that all useful work has dignity, corrected, whether it's cleaning floors or maintaining cosmic stability. The Guardian Network taught me that every component of a system matters, regardless of how others perceive its importance. As the day ended, and the extraordinary events began to settle into memory, understood that he had witnessed the beginning of something unprecedented. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not through military conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple recognition that maintaining order required understanding and cooperation rather than dominance. The universe was far larger and more connected than anyone had imagined. And sometimes, the most important discoveries were made by people who understood that keeping systems running smoothly was just as vital as building new ones. Senior maintenance technician and Earth's first Guardian Network liaison cleaned his equipment and prepared for another day of work. After all, the galaxy wasn't going to maintain itself.